part of my IELTS exam. So again, when the first section of the exam, like the listening section, the listening activities were done, like when all the 40 minutes were gone, I was logged out, and the instructor told the group that this section of the exam is over. Please remain seated while we are collecting your papers. We had those papers. They took it, and then she read the instructions. Some of them were repeated, like raise your hand if you have a question. So don't shout, don't talk, because it distracts other test takers. Okay, just raise your hand. They'll approach to you. Okay. So also, again, you are given new papers during the beginning of the second phase. And like the top part, like the first part of your paper is filled with information, your information, and your new login, your new password. And the second part of the paper is like empty. Let's have it like this, okay? It's something like this. So the first part, you'll have some text, and here you are allowed to take notes, okay? Right. So you log in, and when everyone is logged in, your exam starts. Again, I think I had about 40 minutes for this task, if I'm not mistaken. I've gone through 3 different texts, I think. Now let me try and remember. I remember this text about ancient Egypt. It was so interesting. Like, I learned some new things thanks to this test. So and the text. So it was pretty cool. Like medicine in ancient Egypt. I learned like that they used sugar as a preservative. I knew that salt was used as a preservative, but in ancient Egypt, somehow they were also using sugar as a preservative to keep some stuff fresh. I learned that ancient Egyptians didn't know that you need to keep the instruments clean. This was new. And um, so I read the text and I had to pick the correct answers. Um, Again, we had like synonyms, just like with the listening. You had to work your way around some synonyms. For instance, maybe in the text it was written they kept things fresh, and in the question you had they preserved things. Yeah, so you just need to give it your best shot. If you speak English, if you're good at it, you shouldn't experience any like real hardships. Yeah, sometimes it's tricky. After the text on ancient Egypt, my second text was on stars and galaxies. So here I had some difficulties, and sometimes you have to pick answers. Like there is a statement, and then there are 3 options. The statement is either true or false, or maybe it's not given. Here's an example. This scientist came after scientist A, and he discovered B. Yes, scientist B came after scientist A, and he discovered C. And maybe the question is, the statement is scientist B was inspired by scientist A. I had a similar question, and it was not given in the text. Like, yes, he came after this scientist, but we don't know whether he was inspired by this guy or he wasn't. So if I pick false, um, I wasn't sure because I was not given any information on that account in the text itself. Like, was he inspired by this guy? Did he despise this guy? I didn't know anything, so I couldn't pick false. I just picked not given, right? Yeah. Mm, it was in some instances it was a bit more technical. For instance, I had to go through the text to discover, for instance, if an object goes into the black hole. This was a very tricky passage. Like, mm the text was something like 80 or 90% of matter is not swallowed by this black hole because it is in constant movement. And then the question was maybe something like, well, I'm simplifying right now. It was a bit harder, okay? I just can't remember the exact wording. It was something like, um, why no, I'm just making it simple right now. What was it? Why does the black hole doesn't swallow, uh, or what happens to the mass of objects when they are attracted to this black hole? I'm still simplifying. It was a bit trickier, so I had to go through the text 3 or maybe even 4 times to find the correct answer. However, as a whole, the texts are interesting. It's interesting to go through them. Again, I learned some stuff. Oh, yes. And sometimes the answer is not explicitly given in the text itself. For instance, mm, the text said that there are billions of galaxies, and you have stars and planets, and also in every galaxy you have lots of dust, and probably every galaxy has its own black hole. This was the text. And then the question was, according to the scientists, there are of black holes in the universe. Yeah, yeah, I remember. Yeah, okay. So this was a bit tricky because it was not mentioned in the text like explicitly. However, it was in the text, right? So the text just said there are billions of galaxies. There is dust. There are blah blah blah, and probably each galaxy has its own black hole. So I had to infer. I had to come to the conclusion, if there are billions of galaxies, if each galaxy has its own black hole, then there are billions of black holes, right? So this was a real intellectual exercise for my brain, right? So it was stimulating, let's call it that way. Yeah. So after this second text on the universe and black holes. Um, or maybe I'll give you another example. For instance, one question read. So the text was. Um, the text was okay. Let's try and remember exactly. Uh, like in 60s, uh, the rocket industry uh, got advanced, yeah, got better. Then there was this question, the making of the space. Oh, I'm just changing a bit. The making of the space shuttles increased dramatically by the year 1970. Yeah, approximately something like that. And so again, was it true? Was it false? Was it not given? I think it was not given. It like the test talked about the industry as a whole. It didn't mention any specific shuttle. So I just picked not given. Yeah, you need to just think carefully. And it's those questions with like false or not given, it might be tricky. You might be like, you might want to go. with false, like with the false option, and maybe it's not really false. Maybe it's just not given. So yeah, again, I'll talk about, like, I'll give advice in a separate video, but if you approach with curiosity, with interest, then this whole testing experience will feel much better, much more relaxed. Okay. So then the third text had to do with the history of taming and, well, exploiting chicken, right? How the human being tamed chicken, how they took care of chicken, etc., etc. So in this task, there was the text on one side, and on the other side, there were like maybe six statements, and I had to find, like, in which paragraph was this specific statement. So you had the statement, and then you had, like, it was a table, yes, statement, and then paragraph A, B, C, D, E, F. You would read the paragraph, and on the other side, you'd read the statement, and you'd pick like the paragraph. You'd tick the specific field, like if it was in paragraph A, you'd pick this A field, okay? Um, Now, with the I remember the word tame because again there was some uh, synonym, like the text read humans tamed chicken, and in the question it was, yeah, humans domesticated chicken, right? So just synonyms. If you know the language, then you're good. If you are not sure, you are not, and this is very cool about TOEFL, you're not penalized for a wrong answer, right? Um, if you do not answer at all, you just do not get a point. Each question is worth 1 mark generally. Yeah? So you start from 0, you move up to 40, and if your answer is wrong, you are not losing any mark. It's psychologically, it's a great uh, tool actually. It's cool. So you should at least attempt to answer. Just pick any answer, because if it's wrong, you're not losing anything. Okay. If it's correct, you are gaining 1 point. So this is very cool about this IELTS system, because already in your mind you are not stressed out. Oh my God, if it's the wrong answer and I lose a point. See, yeah, that's very cool. I like that a lot about this TOEFL, and you are clearly reminded of that during this each phase of the testing instruction reading procedure. When the instructor reads the instructions, she reminds you that you are not penalized for the wrong answer. Okay, so this third text on chicken, again, the statements with which I had to work differed drastically from the text. And the statements often were like the generalization of the given paragraph or some idea coming from the paragraph. And it was about checking your understanding of the text. Okay. You can't get too technical and try and hunt words. Well, you can try it. It may work in maybe 20 to 30% if I am to calculate approximately. So the rest of the time, however, you need to really understand it. Okay? If you're not sure, just give it a try and move to the next section. Okay? It's better to have, let's say, 36 correct answers out of 40 instead of getting nervous, spending too much time on one statement and getting like maybe 28 or 32 correct points because you didn't give yourself enough time, you didn't allocate enough time to all the questions. Okay. And one thing about this system is apart from the timer on the top of your screen, you have the text which is available to you throughout like those exercises, and at the bottom of your screen you have, like, if you look carefully, you have part 1, part 2, part 3. If you're done with your part 1, just move to the second part. Okay, you don't have to wait. When it's about the listening task, you can move to the second listening task. You just need to wait for maybe 20 to 30 seconds until the robot catches up, and you are given some time to just familiarize yourself with the questions, and then they start talking. Okay, so it's very user friendly, I'd say. It's very human centric. It's very uh, like it makes your experience comfortable. Okay. Again, with my Chinese TOEFL experience, I was not given any instruction. I was the only foreigner at that university at that time in Beijing. I thought, like, well, there were lots of foreign teachers, so I'd have the chance to meet a few new foreign teachers during this TOEFL exam, because I thought that some of them might be interested in, like, maybe taking care of their professional growth, maybe some TOEFL exam for some, I don't know, higher salary, etc. But I was the only foreigner, and we would move from room to room. It was very strict, etc., and no communication of that type. So IELTS was much more friendly in that respect, much friendlier. Mm, so by the end of my reading section, again, you have your timer on top of the screen. When you have only 10 minutes left, you cannot leave the room. Prior to that, if you finish your test earlier, or if you want a break, you can leave the room and return. Okay, but once you have only 10 minutes left, you are not allowed to leave the room. Okay. And again, the timer changes the color when it's just 10 minutes. I think it turns to orange, from white to orange. When you have only 5 or 3 minutes, it turns to red, and you are reminded. Thus, you are reminded of the time. So it's helping you, okay? Don't panic when you just have a few minutes left. It's just a friendly reminder that you have this much time. Sometimes the instructor may say it out loud. You have only 5 minutes, or only 10 minutes remain. So now you are not allowed to leave the room. Please remain seated until the end of this section. Okay. Throughout all the three sections, when this 10-minute window came, the instructor clearly stated that only 10 minutes are left. You are not allowed to leave the room. Please remain seated. Okay. So again, I was logged out of the PC. The computer collected my data, it was stored, and the instructors approached all of us, and they collected the papers which were given to us with these marks, mm, with the notes that we made. Okay, they just took those papers. Again, they checked our passports. So you have maybe a minute and a half after each section to take a rest. Yeah, and that was it. My reading. I learned some new information about ancient Egypt that was very interesting. It was very interesting to me, okay? And also, I learned about chicken. Here's a funny fact, that chicken were first domesticated uh, because people believed that those animals were sacred, and they had to do with this fight between the day and the night. So people didn't eat chicken many, many centuries ago, millennia ago, probably thousands of years ago. So we domesticated chicken because we thought that chicken helps the day to be reborn, and these were like religious animals. Yeah. So yeah, it was interesting. And I learned that in ancient Rome, they had like pretty advanced factories like not really factories, but farms where they took care of thousands of chicken. And in ancient Egypt, like 750 years ago, they learned to help the chicken hatch from the egg through this, well, artificial hatching process, or through keeping the heat a stable amount of heat in the room, and through turning the egg 4 to 5 times a day. So I learned all of this thanks to my English IELTS exam, which is cool. It's just, history, politics, sci-fi, galaxies, etc. So yeah, I enjoyed my like experience. So this is it. Now I'll make another vid on the last section, the writing assignments. Okay, so see you later. Bye bye.